No Polikoff. Only semi-ruined furniture. A place of kipple and decay. In fact, no personal articles. What greeted him consisted of unclaimed debris which Polikoff had inherited when he took the apartment, and which, in leaving, he had abandoned to the next, if any, tenant. I knew it, he said to himself. Well, there goes the $1,000 bounty. Probably skipped all the way to the Antarctic Circle. Out of my jurisdiction. Another bounty hunter from another police department will retire Polikoff and claim the money. On, I suppose, to the Andes who haven't been warned, as was Polikoff. On to Luba Luft. Back again on the roof in his hovercar, he reported by phone to Harry Bryant. No luck on Polikoff. Left probably right after he lasered Dave. He inspected his wristwatch. Want me to pick up Kadalyi at the field? It'll save time, and I'm eager to get started on Miss Luft. He already had the poop sheet on her laid out before him, and begun a thorough study of it. Good idea, Bryant said, except that Mr. Kadalyi is already here. His Aeroflot ship, as usual, he says, arrived early. Just a moment. An invisible conference. He'll fly over and meet you where you are now, Bryant said, returning to the screen. Meanwhile, read up on Miss Luft, an opera singer, allegedly from Germany, at present attached to the San Francisco Opera Company. He nodded in reflexive agreement, his mind on the poop sheet. Must have a good voice to make connections so fast. Okay, I'll wait here for Kadalyi. He gave Bryant his location and rang off. I'll pose as an opera fan, Rick decided as he read further. I particularly would like to see her as Donna Anna in Don Giovanni. In my personal collection I have tapes by such old-time greats as Elizabeth Schwarzkopf and Lotte Lehmann and Lisa Della Casa. That'll give us something to discuss while I set up my Voight-Kampf equipment. His car phone buzzed. He picked up the receiver. The police operator said, Mr. Deckard, a call for you from Seattle. Mr. Bryant said to put it through to you. From the Rosen Association. Okay, Rick said and waited. What do they want, he wondered. As far as he could discern, the Rosens had already proven to be bad news, and undoubtedly would continue so, whatever they intended. Rachel Rosen's face appeared on the tiny screen. Hello, Officer Deckard. Her tone seemed placating. That caught his attention. Are you busy right now, or can I talk to you? Go ahead, he said. We of the association have been discussing your situation regarding the escaped Nexus 6 types, and knowing them as we do, we feel that you'll have better luck if one of us works in conjunction with you. By doing what? Well, by one of us coming along with you when you go out looking for them. Why? What would you add? Rachel said, The Nexus 6s would be wary at being approached by a human, but if another Nexus 6 made the contact, you specifically mean yourself. Yes, she nodded, her face sober. I've got too much help already, but I really think you need me. I doubt it. I'll think it over and call you back. At some distant, unspecified future time, he said to himself, or more likely never, That's all I need. Rachel Rosen popping up through the dust at every step. You don't really mean it, Rachel said. You'll never call me. You don't realize how agile an illegal escaped Nexus 6 is, how impossible it'll be for you. We feel we owe you this because of, you know, what we did. I'll take it under advisement. He started to hang up. Without me, Rachel said, one of them will get you before you get it. Goodbye, he said and hung up. What kind of world is it, he asked himself, when an android phones up a bounty hunter and offers him assistance? He rang the police operator back. Don't put any more calls through to me from Seattle, he said. Yes, Mr. Deckard. Has Mr. Cadalyi reached you yet? I'm still waiting. And he'd better hurry, because I'm not going to be here long. Again he hung up. As he resumed reading the poop sheet on Luba Luft, however, the hovercar taxi spun down to land on the roof a few yards off. From it, a red-faced, cherubic-looking man, evidently in his mid-50s, wearing a heavy and impressive Russian-style greatcoat, stepped, and, smiling, his hand extended, approached Rick's car. Mr. Deckard, the man asked in a Slavic accent. The bounty hunter for the San Francisco Police Department. The empty taxi rose and the Russian watched it go absently. I'm Sandor Kadili, the man said, and opened the car door to squeeze in beside Rick. As he shook hands with Kadili, Rick noticed that the WPO representative carried an unusual type of laser tube, a subform which he had never seen before. Oh, this, Kadili said. Interesting, isn't it? He tugged it from his belt holster. I got this on Mars. I thought I knew every handgun made, Rick said, even those manufactured at and for use in the colonies. We made this ourselves, Kadali said, beaming like a Slavic Santa, his ruddy face inscribed with pride. You like it? What is different about it? Functionality is here, take it. He passed the gun over to Rick, who inspected it expertly, by way of years of experience. How does it differ functionally? Rick said. He couldn't tell. Press the trigger. Aiming upward, out the window of the car, Rick squeezed the trigger of the weapon. Nothing happened. No beam emerged. Puzzled, he turned to Kadalyi. The triggering circuit, Kadalyi said cheerfully, isn't attached. It remains with me, you see. He opened his hand, revealed a tiny unit, and I can also direct it within certain limits, irrespective of where it's aimed. You're not Polakov, you're Kadalyi, Rick said. Don't you mean that's the other way around? You're a bit confused. I mean you're Polakov the android. You're not from Soviet police. Rick, with his toe, pressed the emergency button on the floor of his car. Why won't my laser tube fire? Kadalyi Polakov said, switching on and off the miniaturized triggering and aiming device which he held in the palm of his hand. A sine wave, Rick said, that phases out laser emanation and spreads the beam into ordinary light. Then I'll have to break your pencil neck. The android dropped the device and with a snarl grabbed with both hands for Rick's throat. As the android's hands sank into his throat, Rick fired his regulation-issue old-style pistol from his shoulder holster. The .38 Magnum slug struck the android in the head, and its brain box burst. The Nexus 6 unit which operated it blew into pieces. A raging, mad wind which carried throughout the car. Bits of it, like the radioactive dust itself, whirled down on Rick. The retired remains of the android rocked back, collided with the car door, bounced off and struck heavily against him. He found himself struggling to shove the twitching remnants of the android away. Shakily, he at last reached for the car phone, called into the Hall of Justice. "Shall I make my report?" he said. "Tell Harry Bryant that I got Paulikov." "You got Paulikov?" "He'll understand that, will he?" "Yes," Rick said, and hung up. "Christ, that came close," he said to himself. "I must have overreacted to Rachel Rosen's warning. I went the other way, and it almost finished me. But I got Paulikov," he said to himself. His adrenal gland, by degrees, ceased pumping its several secretions into his bloodstream. His heart slowed to normal. His breathing became less frantic. But he still shook. "Anyhow, I made myself $1,000 just now," he informed himself. So it was worth it. And I'm faster to react than Dave Holden. Of course, however, Dave's experience evidently prepared me. That has to be admitted. Dave had not had such warning. Again picking up the phone, he placed a call home to his apt to Iran. Meanwhile, he managed to light a cigarette. The shaking had begun to depart. His wife's face, sodden with the 6-hour self-accusatory depression which he had prophesied, manifested itself on the vidscreen. "Oh, hello, Rick. What happened to the 594 I dialed for you before I left? Pleased acknowledgement of I redialed as soon as you left. What do you want?" Her voice sank into a dreary drone of despond. "I'm so tired, and I just have no hope left of anything, of our marriage, and you possibly getting killed by one of those Andes. Is that what you want to tell me, Rick? That an Andy got you?" In the background, the racket of Buster Friendly's boomed and brayed, eradicating her words. He saw her mouth moving, but heard only the TV. "Listen," he broke in, "can you hear me? I'm on to something. A new type of android that apparently nobody can handle but me. I've retired one already, so that's $1,000 to start with. You know what we're going to have before I'm through." Iran stared at him sightlessly. "Oh," she said, nodding. "I haven't said yet." He could tell now. Her depression this time had become too vast for her even to hear him. For all intents, he spoke into a vacuum. "I'll see you tonight," he finished bitterly and slammed the receiver down. "Damn her," he said to himself. "What good does it do, my risking my life? She doesn't care whether we own an ostrich or not. Nothing penetrates. I wish I had gotten rid of her 2 years ago, when we were considering splitting up. I can still do it," he reminded himself. Brutally, he leaned down, gathered together on the car floor his crumpled papers, including the info on Luba Luft. No support, he informed himself. Most androids I've known have more vitality and desire to live than my wife. She has nothing to give me, That made him think of Rachel Rosen again. Her advice to me as to the Nexus 6 mentality, he realized, turned out to be correct. Assuming she doesn't want any of the bounty money, maybe I could use her. The encounter with Kadalye Polakov had changed his ideas rather massively. Snapping on his hovercar's engine, he whisked nippity-nip up into the sky, heading towards the old War Memorial Opera House, where, according to Dave Holden's notes, he would find Luba Luft this time of the day. He wondered now about her, too. Some female androids seemed to him pretty. He had found himself physically attracted by several, and it was an odd sensation, knowing intellectually that they were machines, but emotionally reacting anyhow. For example, Rachel Rosen. No, he decided, she's too thin. No real development, especially in the bust. A figure like a child's, flat and tame. He could do better. How old did the poop sheet say Luba Luft was? As he drove, he hauled out the now wrinkled notes. Found her so-called age. 28, the sheet read. Judged by appearance, which, with Andy's, was the only useful standard. It's a good thing I know something about opera, Rick reflected. That's another advantage I have over Dave. I'm more culturally oriented. I'll try one more Andy before I ask Rachel for help, he decided. If Miss Luft proves exceptionally hard, but he had an intuition she wouldn't. Polakov had been the rough one. The others, unaware that anyone actively hunted them, would crumble in succession, plugged like a file of ducks. As he descended toward the ornate, expansive roof of the opera house, he loudly sang a potpourri of arias, with pseudo-Italian words made up on the spot by himself. Even without the Penfield mood organ at hand, his spirits brightened into optimism and into hungry, gleeful anticipation.